Hey, welcome to Live with Lynn. So if you're here, say hi. If you're watching the replay, be sure to type replay so I know you were here. I'm Lynn Huber, and I appreciate you being here today. This is my second shot. The first one went bad. So if you're watching this, if you already watched me do this live, I'm sorry. But the first one didn't record. I don't know what happened. So anyway, I'm live. And today we're going to talk about it's not always your fault. So whenever anything goes wrong in my life, it's my fault, right? This is the narrative that I've been telling myself for as long as I can remember. All the misfortunes and disappointments, whether they're big or small, they're my responsibility. If I failed, it was me. It was my fault. If something went wrong, it was my fault. So that's how I used to think. And it's only now in adulthood and after lots of personal um, development that I realize it's not always me. Sometimes I go back to that, but I'm a lot better. Hi, Anitra. Good to see you again. But sometimes I go back to that, right? But I'm a lot better than I used to be. So, yes, it's not always me. In fact, much of the time, it has literally nothing to do with me. Not because it's someone else's fault, but because there is so much stuff going on all over which I have zero control. Do you do this too? Why do we keep telling ourselves it's our fault? Well, being a responsible person is usually a good thing. It means you're committed, you're dependable, you're accountable, and you care about others and you take pride in what you're doing, right? But it's the opposite, and it's the opposite of shirking responsibility by pointing fingers or making excuses. So it's a good thing to be responsible. But sometimes we can go too far. Do you tend to take on other people's tasks? If someone you love is grumpy, do you automatically go there and assume that it's something you did? Do you apologize when someone bumps into you? You know, owning what's yours, mistakes and blunders included, is a sign of maturity. But owning everyone else's mistakes and blunders, not to mention tasks, duties, and emotions, is a sign of over responsibility. You can tell you're overly responsible because you're probably quite often near the edge of burnout. You're scheduling your life and everyone else's. You get annoyed by how irresponsible other people seem. You keep reminding others of their responsibilities. You keep reminding yourself of all the things you should be doing. You resent those who seem to feel entitled to your generosity. And the moment anything goes not to plan, you feel the entire weight of that outcome on your shoulders. The idea that you're responsible for things beyond your control and becoming obsessive with this sense of responsibility for others is actually sometimes linked with an actual mental illness called obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Actual OCD can be much more severe and may need a doctor's care. And I'm obviously not a doctor. So if you need help with this, please get help from a professional. But so, where does this idea of becoming overly responsible come from? Like most beliefs and habits, it often starts while you're still a child. Kids who get blamed for things that they have no power over, like maybe their parents' emotions or finances or relationships, they tend to start believing that they are responsible because it's kind of what they're being told, right? So when you grow up hearing things like, look how upset you made your mom, or buying Christmas presents this year is really making us broke, or anything else along those lines, it can make you start to believe that it's always your fault. I grew up in a town where I went to the wrong church. This town was 100% about one particular church, and I didn't belong to that church. And so everybody hated me. Everybody treated me bad as a child. I didn't have any friends, and I mean, long story. But if anything ever went wrong, I was the one that got blamed for it. I was your token, whatever. I was the one that got blamed. And so, yeah, so as a child, very young in elementary school, I started to take responsibility. I started to feel like everything was my fault. I started to believe that. And, but being overly responsible can play out in our lives in many different ways. The first one is guilt. So it's appropriate to feel guilty when we've hurt someone or something, whether it was on purpose or not. But when you're over responsible, we tend to feel guilty when things out of our control go wrong. Even if it's something we couldn't even have foreseen, we still feel as though we should have known to act differently. Anitra says, trying to do all your responsibilities plus other people's responsibilities can drive someone crazy. For sure. Yeah, for sure. So, even if it's something we could have foreseen, we tend to feel as though we should have known to act differently, right? Another way that it affects us is we avoid conflict. So, in trying to keep the peace, we'd rather shoulder more than our fair share of the burden than risk a difficult conversation or a confrontation with someone. It's easier to expand the scope of our responsibilities rather than risk upsetting or disappointing someone we care about, right? Or we might feel used. This one can be hard because, of course, we want those around us to trust that we'll cover for them. We'll drive our teenager to school if he's running late, or we're happy to help a coworker finish a project when she has to leave early, maybe because the school has called or something, or maybe even work a second job to make up for our spouse's bad financial decisions. But then we end up with a unending to-do list and 1,000 details to attend to. Hi, Marcia. She says, so true. We hate to see our loved ones struggle, so we take on more. Yes, it's true. We do, right? But here it's important to understand the difference between demands and priorities. So priorities are the things you want to do, and demands are the things that other people expect you to do. So too many priorities can lead to boredom, while too many demands can lead to resentment. And resentment is exactly where the road of over responsibility takes us. Even though we might have brought it on ourselves by always volunteering to pick up the pieces, we do start to feel used. So, how about we take self responsibility instead? You are not to blame for everything, but you are responsible for yourself. So, what do you have control over? Well, there's just three things: your thoughts, your words, and your actions, right? So sometimes it might not feel that way. I mean, you might often act out of habit and longstanding emotional patterns, and you go back to that being responsible for somebody else. But if you decide right now that you're going to take full responsibility for yourself, you can learn to step back from those patterns and make happier and healthier choices. So stop beating yourself up for everything that goes wrong. Instead, commit to being fully responsible for yourself, for your own thoughts, your own words, and your own actions. Those thoughts might still rise up in your mind, those thoughts that you're responsible for everything, especially since you've been thinking those kinds of thoughts for a very long time. You don't need to feel guilty, though, about a single one. If they come up, you don't have to feel guilty about them. Just know that you can choose whether to give it power or let it go. Be your own self advocate. One of the kindest things that we can do for ourselves is to be a worthy self advocate. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Marcia says, never thought of it that way, but now that I think about it, it's true. It is. It's true. So yeah, be your own worthy self advocate, right? Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Your self talk might sound something more like this. So we have that mind chatter that goes on in our heads all day long. Our brains never stop, and so pay attention to what your brain is saying. And if it's saying bad things, negative things, you need to stop that and say, no, this is what I'm going to think. This is how I'm going to think. If you keep doing that, eventually you'll turn around your thoughts, right? So some of the things that you might want to say is, I'm doing enough. I'm a good enough parent or business owner or spouse or child to your parents or sibling or whatever it is, right? I'm doing enough. I am behaving adequately. I might not be perfect, but that's okay. I'm making progress because I'm a work in progress. I don't need to be fixed anyway. I'm having a human experience that's meant to be messy and dysfunctional at times. I don't have to be happy all the time. See, it's a process. And as long as you're getting better and you're moving forward every day, you're on the right track. So, hey, now I'd love to hear from you. Did anything I talk about today resonate with you? What kinds of things help you to remember that it's not always your fault? You're not responsible for everything. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. Anitra says the National Federation for the Blind has taught me to self-advocate. Exactly. Well, I'm sure you especially have to, huh? Yeah, that's true. So anyway, I want to thank everyone who was here with me live. Thank you, Anitra. Thank you, Marcia. And some of you were live with me on my earlier one. I thank you for coming back. But whether you're here live and maybe you just haven't commented, or you're here live and you did comment, or maybe if you're watching the replay, I appreciate you. So go out there and have an amazing day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.